You're watching the MMA Oracles Podcast, and now, presenting your host, Jack Moon.
This is the MMA Oracles Podcast, and I am your host, Jack Moon. On this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be covering UFC 299, which goes down this Saturday and is headlined by a UFC bantamweight title fight between Sugar Sean O'Malley, defending his title for the first time against Marlon Chito Vera. Just a quick note, across the UFC events that have happened so far this year, my predictions are pretty much crushing everybody else's. If you go to the pick competition on my website, themmaoracles.wordpress.com, I am tracking the picks of a bunch of other top analysts who predict the fights. The only one currently beating me is MMA Mania, which they have a few different guys that put out their picks. They are a little bit ahead of me, but I am catching up. And Keith Schillen from Sherdog, shout out to him. I am tied with him for 53 correct picks on the year. Also, the MMA Junkie website has a whole group of analysts that predict just the main card. Their picks that they list on there are wildly inaccurate, and I am just crushing them again. The only person out of them that is tied with me currently at 24 correct picks is Mike Bone. Everyone else, there's a couple that are one or two picks behind, but I expect to lead them again. I beat them last year, was in first place and then as for the other ones, the only people that beat me were Matt and Craig Allen from Fight Night Picks. Unfortunately, they are no longer putting their picks out this year, so that makes me the top spot. So let's get straight into this UFC 299 card. First fight of the night is Joanne JoJo Wood versus Marina Iron Lady Moroz. In the red corner, Wood is 38 years old. She is 16-8 overall with 5 knockouts, 1 submission, and 10 decisions. She is currently 8-8 in the UFC. Her best wins have come over Lena Ovechkinova. That was in her second pro fight, which was a solid win for her. She beat Siohi Ham in her UFC debut. Valerie Letourneau, Kalindra Faria, current top-ranked Ariane Lipski, Andrea Lee, Jessica Ai, and Luana Carolina. She is a 4-time world kickboxing champion. She's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She was on The Ultimate Fighter Season 20. She is usually a pretty fun fighter to watch. In the blue corner, we have Marina Moroz, who is 32 years old. She is 11-5 overall with 1 TKO, 6 submissions, and 4 decisions. She is currently 6-5 in the UFC. Her best wins have come over Karine Silva. That was in her 5th pro fight. She went 5-0 and actually punched her ticket to the UFC. In the UFC, she has beaten Joanne Wood, who she defeated in her debut. I'll go over that a little more later on. Danielle Taylor, Sabina Mazo, Mayra Bueno Silva, who just recently fought for the bantamweight title, and Maria Agapova. She is a master of sport in boxing, a master of sport in kickboxing, and trains with one of the best teams in the world at American Top Team. Moroz is currently sitting at a minus 200 favorite for this fight, with Wood as a plus 165 underdog. It's currently 2,730 Tapology votes on the fight. 76% of those are favoring Moroz to win, with 78% taking her to win by decision. Of the 24% taking Wood, 87% of those are taking her to win a decision. As I mentioned, these two have fought once before. It was Marina Moroz's UFC debut and Joanne Wood's second fight in the UFC after coming off The Ultimate Fighter. Moroz ended up winning that fight by submission with an armbar off her back. It was just a minute and 30 into the first round. Honestly, I kind of look at that as a bit of a fluke. I think Wood has improved since then. I believe I was favoring Wood going into that fight anyway. And I actually like Wood as the underdog here. Despite Moroz being a little bit bigger, she doesn't use her size very well. So I do think Wood will be able to get inside and land her shots. Wood throws much more volume. She's way more accurate. She's comparable defensively. And unless she makes another stupid mistake like falling into a submission, I think she's going to pull off the upset here. She's improved her grappling since that first fight. And Moroz hasn't won a fight in over 2 years. Also been doing OnlyFans. Shout out to her for that. But yeah, I like Wood as the underdog here. So give me, for the official pick, Joanne Wood by unanimous decision. For the second fight of the night, we head to the flyweight division for a matchup between CJ Vergara and Asu Zulfikar Almabayev. Vergara is 32 years old. He is 12-4-1 overall with 7 knockouts and 5 decisions. He is the former Fury FC champ. He is a brown band in Muay Thai, and he's got good knockout power for the division. He's currently 3-2 in the UFC. His best wins have been over Bruno Correa, who he beat on the Contender Series to earn his UFC contract. And then in the UFC, he's defeated Clayton Rodriguez, Daniel Lacerda, and Vinicius Salvador. On the other side, we have Almabayev, who is 30 years old. He is 18-2 overall with 3 knockouts, 9 submissions, and 6 decisions. He is currently 1-0 in the UFC. His best wins have been over Chris Kalidas, Alexander Doskolchuk, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that guy's name incorrectly, and Zach Makovsky and Ode Osborne. He is the former NFC champ, the former M1 Global champ, and he trains with the same team that produced Shavkat Rakhmonov. Almabayev is currently a minus 440 favorite. Coming back as a plus 340 underdog is Vergara. There's currently 2,908 Tapology votes on this fight. 93% of those are favoring Almabayev, with 69% taking him to win by submission. Of the 7% taking Vergara, 62% are expecting him to win a decision. That stat was actually pretty surprising to me. I don't see Vergara winning a decision in this fight. So for the people picking him to win, they're taking him by decision. I think that's going to be a miss, just in my opinion. I think he's got the power to score a knockout. I could see him pulling off the upset that way. But going against a wrestler, grappler like Almabayev, I don't really see him edging out these rounds unless he's able to shut down the takedowns entirely, which isn't really something we've seen from him so far. He does have a decent takedown defense rate in the UFC at 74%, but 2 of his 4 losses as a pro have been by submission. So um, Almabayev's wins outside the UFC over fighters like Kalidas, and especially that one over Makovsky, do give me a little more confidence picking him as well. I think the Makovsky win for him was a split decision, but Makovsky is a solid wrestler and grappler himself. So if Almabayev was able to overcome him and edge out those rounds, I think he should be able to do so against Vergara as well. And he was also able to take down a longer, lankier fighter in Ode Osborne in his UFC debut and lock up a submission on him. So with Vergara not having the greatest submission defense, I'm sticking with the favorite in this one. Give me Asu Almabayev to win by submission in the second round. Next up on the card, we have a heavyweight pairing between the debuting Robelis, the big boy Despagne, taking on Josh Parisian. Despagne is 35 years old. He is 4-0, all 4 wins by knockouts. He is undefeated. He is an Olympic bronze medalist in Taekwondo, a black belt in Taekwondo as well. He's got insane size for this division. He is 6'7", with an 87-inch reach. He's an absolutely massive heavyweight, freak athlete as well. Super high level striking as well with his Taekwondo, but he's only faced a low level of competition so far, so this is going to be a big step up for him. On the other side is Parisian, who is 34 years old. He is 15-7 overall with 11 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 2 decisions. He's currently 2-4 in the UFC with his best wins coming over Greg Rebello and Chad Johnson, both guys he beat on the Contender Series. And then his wins in the UFC are over Roque Martinez and Alan Baudet. He is the former Clip champ. He was a contestant on Tough 28, lost his only fight on there. He does have a decent team behind him, decent striking, decent wrestling, just a well-rounded fighter, but not really outstanding anywhere. Despaigne is the minus 420 favorite going into this fight, with Parisian coming back as a plus 310 underdog. There's currently 2,956 Tapology votes on this fight. 95% of those are favoring Despaigne. 92% of those are taking him to win by knockout. Of the 5% taking Parisian, 46% are taking him to win by knockout. Pretty wild odds on this fight for a guy he's only fought one fighter that had a win. All of his fighters that he's faced have a current combined record of 1-4. So the guy that he fought last is now 1-1, and the other guys are all 0-1. So big step up for him. So pretty shocked to see him as such a large favorite. At the same time, also not that shocked. Parisian is kind of a bottom of the barrel type of guy. He's competent everywhere, but just not great anywhere. It's almost the exact opposite of Despaigne. Despaigne like I said, he's a freak athlete, uber prospect, ton of potential, super high level striking. He's got one area that he is phenomenal at, whereas Parisian is just kind of decent everywhere. Technique wise, that does mean that Parisian has more tools in his bag, though. So if this fight gets outside of that first round, I expect those odds to shift drastically. That being said, I don't expect it to get out of that first round. Parisian is just too slow. Despaigne is explosive. He's fast. He's going to have a big reach advantage here. And his high-level taekwondo against a slow, plodding guy like Parisian, I think we see him score another first-round finish. So give me Robelli's Despaigne by knockout in the first round for the official pick. There's a lot of close fights on this card, and this is one of them. I kind of went back and forth on it here. We moved to the middleweight division for a matchup between Michel Demolador Pereira taking on Michael Hussar Alexi Jusik. On the red corner, we have Pereira, who is 30 years old. He is 29-11 overall, 11 knockouts, 6 submissions, and 11 decisions. He's currently 7-2 in the UFC. His best wins have been over Danny Roberts, Chaos Williams, Nico Price, Andre Fialho, Santiago Ponzinibbio, and Andre Petrosky. He is the former SBC welterweight champion. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a black belt in karate. He's a super creative and acrobatic striker. He's got knockout power and actually surprisingly good wrestling. So decently well-rounded game for him. In the blue corner, we have Alexi Jusik, who is 29 years old. He is 19-6 overall, 14 knockouts, 1 sub, 4 decisions. He's the former TFL light heavyweight champion. He is a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got big knockout power, and he's durable, and he will take a shot to land one of his own. Betting odds, minus 140 for Pereira as the favorite. Olajeszek coming back as a plus 115 underdog. Currently 2,964 Tapology votes on this fight. 76% of those are favoring Pereira. 47% of those are taking him to win by knockout. Of the 24% taking Olajeszek, 64% are taking him to win by knockout. Really close fight, as the odds suggest there. I did kind of go back and forth a bit. I was pretty tempted to take Olajeszek as the underdog, but I am leaning towards the favorite. I think Pereira's speed, his more dynamic striking, him having more weapons, he's got better kicks. I think Olajeszek's more of a boxer. So I think Pereira having those more tools, more weapons to attack with, and that surprisingly good wrestling game that he can fall back on if things do get a little bit hairy on the feet. I think that gives him the edge in this fight. Olajeszek does really only need one shot to change the fight in his favor, but I just think he's going to be too slow. I don't think Pereira is going to get the finish in this fight. I know a lot of the fans on Tapology are picking a knockout on either side. But I think we just see Pereira more use his speed, his volume, footwork, maybe mixing some wrestling there, and that will edge him out the rounds. Official pick, give me Michelle Pereira by unanimous decision. For the next fight on the card, we move up to the light heavyweight division, where Ion the Hulk Cutlaba is taking on Felipe Monstro Lins. Cutlaba is 30 years old. He is 17-9-1 overall with 13 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 2 decisions. He is currently 6-8-1 in the UFC, with his best wins coming over Khalil Roundtree Jr., Devin Clark, and Tanner Boser. He is a gold medalist in combat sambo. He has a great team behind him at Extreme Couture, and I think he's a pretty overrated fighter who's actually not very good. I think he paints himself green at the weigh-ins. Um, he's more of a character that entertains than an actually good fighter. And most of his UFC wins have come over fighters who are no longer on the roster. Um, and he's got more losses than wins in the UFC. On the other side, we have Lins, who is 38 years old. He is 17-5 overall with 9 knockouts, 4 submissions, and 4 decisions. He is currently 3-2 in the UFC. His best wins have come over Alex Nicholson, Chao Alankar, Jared Rochold, Josh Copeland, Marcin Prachnio, Ovin St. Preux, and Maxime Grishin. He is the former PFL heavyweight champ. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he trains with one of the best teams in the world at American Top Team. Going into this fight, Cutlaba is the minus 135 favorite, with Lins coming back as a plus 115 underdog. There's currently 2,727 Tapology votes on this fight. 68% of those are favoring Cutlaba to win, with 82% expecting him to win by knockout. Of the 32% taking Lins, 49% have him to win by knockout. I think that's what makes this fight interesting. Both fighters really do have the tools to win. All 4 of Lin's losses have been by knockout, and Cutlaba is really only good at knocking people out. As for Cutlaba, he's been finished in 7 of his 9 losses, 3 knockouts, 4 submissions. Lins can kind of take his pick there. So I really think if Lins is smart, he has the tools to win this fight, and it's a really good matchup for him. So I love him as the underdog here. Cutlaba, like I said, extremely overrated guy, more losses than wins in the UFC. Really only beaten guys who aren't very good. I mean, his best wins, Devin Clark. Pretty sure Devin Clark has more losses than wins in the UFC. Tanner Boser, same thing. And the win over Khalil Roundtree. Khalil Roundtree is another guy I think is overrated, but I also think that win for him was kind of a fluke. I think if they rematch now, Khalil Roundtree would be a big favorite. So, yeah, I'm not on the Cutlaba train at all here. Really favoring Lins. I think Lins will need to be careful early. All 4 of his losses have been by knockout, but all 4 of those losses were all by knockout at heavyweight. At light heavyweight, dealing with a guy like Cutlaba, it's dangerous. He's going to be a little bit faster, but I don't know. I think Lins can survive the early storm here. I think that round 1 is going to be a bit shaky. He might get caught and put away. It wouldn't shock me. But the longer this fight goes, the more we have to assume it's going to start to favor Lins. And I think Lins can survive that first round. I see him taking over in a big way in the second. I think he probably hurts Cutlaba on the feet, gets him to the floor, and locks up a submission to end it. Give me, for the official pick, Felipe Lins by submission in the second round. Next up, we have a pair of bantamweights here, as Pedro the Young Punisher Munoz is taking on Kyler the Matrix Phillips. Do you think Munoz needs to change that nickname, the Young Punisher? Pretty odd for a guy that is 37 years old. He's definitely not young anymore, especially not in this game. If anything, I guess you can take it to mean that he's punishing young fighters that are trying to come up, but don't think that's what he's really going for. Munoz is 37 years old. He is 20-8 overall, 4 knockouts, 9 submissions, 7 decisions. He's currently 10-8 in the UFC. His best wins have come over Jeff Curran, Justin Scoggins, Rob Font, Brett Johns, Brian Caraway, Cody Garbrandt, Jimmy Rivera, and Chris Gutierrez. He is the former RFA champ. He is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a brown belt in Judo, and he's got a solid team behind him at Black House MMA. He's a fighter who has big power in his hands, especially for the division. He's got some pretty good low kicks, really hard low kicks, and obviously a very dangerous submission game. On the other side, Phillips is 28 years old. He is 11-2 overall with 5 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 4 decisions. He is currently 5-1 in the UFC. Best wins have been over Yadong Song and Heoni Barcelos. He is a dynamic, flashy striker, training partner of Sean O'Malley, great team behind him at the MMA Lab. He is currently sitting as a minus 225 favorite over Munoz, who is coming back as a plus 185 underdog. It's currently 2,976 Tapology votes on this fight. 59% of those are favoring Phillips to win. 87% are taking him to win by decision. Of the 41% taking Munoz, 84% of those are taking him to win by decision. I do agree more with the Tapology votes than the betting odds on this. I think this is a really close fight. Munoz is always a crafty, dangerous veteran, and Phillips has a habit of letting fights be closer than they really need to be, especially with the skill set that he has. He does have a big reach advantage in this fight. His footwork is really solid, and range control is going to be a big key for him. Munoz excels when he is able to get in close. He can land some big hooks and start to grapple. That's really where he's at his best. So Phillips is going to need to keep him on the outside at the end of his punches to be able to win these rounds. I don't think he should focus on putting Munoz away. Munoz is a pretty durable guy. So I think we need to see some good fight IQ out of Phillips here, which isn't something that you can really rely on him for. So tough call on this one. I do still stick with the favorite. Don't like him as a minus 225, but I do have Phillips winning this fight. I just think he is better defensively, and I think he's the better wrestler as well. So I think that's going to help him edge out the rounds. I think the wrestling will help him kind of shut down any grappling attempts from Munoz. The reach advantage, Munoz is going to struggle with that, especially with the dynamic, creative striking that Phillips is going to throw at him. And Phillips is pretty smart defensively, so I think he'll be able to avoid getting clipped by any of the big power shots coming back from Munoz. So for the official pick, give me Kyler the Matrix Phillips by unanimous decision. Next up on the card, we have a solid lightweight pairing between Matthias Gamrot taking on Rafael Dos Anjos. Gamrot is 33 years old. He is 23-2 overall with 8 knockouts, 5 submissions, and 10 decisions. He's currently 6-2 in the UFC. His best wins in his career have been over Andre Winner, Marif Parayev, Mansour Barnoy, Renato Gomes, Norman Park twice, Kleber Quake Erbst, Scott Holtzman, Jeremy Stevens, Diego Fajeda, Armin Sarukian, Jalen Turner, and Rafael Fiziev. He is the former KSW lightweight champ, former KSW featherweight champ. He is a 2-time ADCC gold medalist, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a really good wrestler. His striking is improving, and he has one of the best teams in the world behind him at American Top Team. On the other side, Dos Anjos is 39. He is 32-15 overall with 5 knockouts, 11 submissions, and 16 decisions. He's currently 21-13 in the UFC. His best wins in his career have been over George Sotiropoulos, Kamal Shalarus, Anthony Njokuani, Mark Bocek, Evan Dunham, Donald Cerrone twice,
Jason High, Benson Henderson, Nate Diaz, Anthony Pettis, Tarek Safadine, Neil Magny, Robbie Lawler, Kevin Lee, Paul Felder, Renato Moicano, and Brian Barberena. Dos Anjos is the former UFC lightweight champion. He is a World Jiu-Jitsu gold medalist, a fourth degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a black Prajid in Muay Thai under Rafael Cordero, and has a great team behind him as well at King's MMA. Going into this fight, Gamrot is a minus 355 favorite, with RDA sitting at a plus 280 underdog. There's currently 3,152 Tapology votes on the fight. 94% of those are favoring Gamrot, with 82% expecting him to win a decision. Of the 6% taking RDA, 62% are taking him to win by decision. This is an interesting matchup. Honestly, wouldn't be that hard to imagine that long ago these odds being reversed. Just a couple years ago, RDA most likely would have been the favorite. That being said, RDA is 39 years old now. He is dropping back down to lightweight here after a pretty lackluster loss in his last performance against Vicente Luque. RDA, he's really got all the tools you want in a fighter. He's got really good Muay Thai striking, solid wrestling, super high level grappling. He's been historically pretty durable, but all the same can really be said for Gamrot. And Gamrot is 6 years younger. I think Gamrot is in his prime, and we've been seeing him show improvements too. I think his striking's coming along a little better. He's more aggressive. He mixes things up a little bit better now. I think that is, at least in part, due to his training with American Top Team as well. So, on the other side, I think we've seen RDA start to decline. That last fight against Luque, he did not look very good. I think that was the start of the decline for him, being 39 years old. And I think we're just going to see more decline from him here. Gamrot should be able to just outwork RDA. RDA is still, crafty veteran, former champ, so I think he'll be able to keep up. I think he's going to stay in the fight to the final bell, but Gamrot's going to outwork him. More volume, control the fight, win the rounds. So for the official pick, give me Matthias Gamrot by unanimous decision. Up next on the card, we have a bathroom and snack break as Catlin, blonde fighter, she just changed her last name. I believe it's pronounced Sermonara, takes on Macy the Future Barber. Catlin is 35 years old. She is 18-5 overall with 2 knockouts, 1 submission, and 15 decisions. That's right, 15 of her 18 wins have been by decision. Obviously not a very entertaining fighter to watch. She is currently 11-5 in the UFC, though. Her best wins have been over Lauren Murphy, Irene Aldana, Alexis Davis, Joanne Wood, Jennifer Maia twice, Antonina Shevchenko, Cynthia Calvillo, Viviane Araujo, and Amanda Ribas. So she's beaten some pretty good competition. She is the former CFFC Women's Flyweight Champion, former CFFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. She is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but as I mentioned, most of her wins by decision, so not a lot of power in her strikes. Her game really relies on athleticism and volume and footwork, which is going to be difficult to hold up as she's getting older. On the other side, we have Barber, who is only 25 years old. She is 13-2 overall with 6 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 5 decisions. She is currently 8-2 in the UFC. Her best wins have been over JJ Aldrich, Jillian Robertson, Miranda Maverick, Montana De La Rosa, Jessica Ai, Andrea Lee, and Amanda Ribas. She is a second-degree black belt in karate, purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Henner and Hiron Gracie, and obviously the much more dangerous finisher. Barber is currently sitting at a minus 200 favorite, with Catlin as a plus 165 underdog. There's currently 2,907 Tapology votes on this fight. 85% of those are favoring Barber. 82% of those are expecting her to win a decision. Of the 15% taking Catlin, 91% of those take her to win by decision. I don't know what the other 9% of those people are thinking. Picking Catlin by anything other than decision basically seems absurd to me. This woman hasn't finished a single fight in the UFC. In fact, her last finish in her career was in 2016. So 8 years she hasn't finished a single fight. So yeah, if you're picking her to win by any type of finish, that's a wild shot in the dark there, especially against a young, hungry prospect like Barber, who's gonna be looking to come after and put on another impressive performance to really take her place in the division and move herself into the title picture. I think Barber has shown great improvement lately. Her finishing Amanda Hebus in the way she did was a big statement in my eyes. I think that was a really big win for her, and it showcased a lot of improvements that she's made in her game as she's just getting more aggressive. Her striking's getting better. She's got decent wrestling too, so I'm definitely favoring her in this fight. I can definitely see a scenario where Catlin's able to stay on the outside, get her game going with her footwork, her striking, picking her shots. Just really, she likes to really frustrate opponents, um, and just use volume and footwork to rack up points. I could see that working on Barber. In fact, a lot of other analysts are taking Catlin here as the underdog, uh, but I'm not buying into it. I think this is going to be a moment where I'm going to get to say "I told you so" on a favorite. Yeah, give me Macy Barber by unanimous decision as the official pick. We go back to the heavyweight division for a fight that's set to headline the preliminary card of UFC 299 as Curtis Razor Blades takes on Jailton Malhadinho Almeida. Blades is 33 years old. He is 17-4 overall with 12 knockouts and 5 decisions. He is currently 12-4 in the UFC with his best wins coming over Daniel Obilanchuk, Alexei Oleinik, Mark Hunt, Alistair Overeem, Shamil Abdurakhimov, Junior Dos Santos, Alexander Volkov, Jairzinho Rosenstruck, and Tom Aspinall. Even though that Tom Aspinall win was not really a fight, Aspinall basically just injured himself really early. Blades is an NJCAA All-American wrestler. He holds the record for most takedowns in the heavyweight division. He is a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he has a great team behind him at Elevation Fight Team. He has been criticized before for being a boring fighter that will just kind of lay on his opponents, but we've seen him step up his aggression a little bit lately, and his striking has improved as well. So, dangerous guy at the top of the division for sure. Big test for Almeida, who is currently 32 years old. He is 20-2 overall with 7 knockouts, 12 submissions, and 1 decision. He is currently 6-0 in the UFC. His best wins have been over Ildemar Alcantara, Nasruddin Nasruddinov, Shamil Abdurakhimov, Jairzinho Rosenstruck, and Derek Lewis. Both fighters are coming into this fight as minus 110. Completely even fight on the odds makers. There's currently 3,146 Tapology votes on the fight. 66% of those are favoring Almeida. 42% of those are taking him to win by decision. By submission. The 34% taking Blades. 48% of those are taking him to win by knockout. These two were scheduled to meet already back in November. Blades had an ankle injury, ended up having to pull out, and Almeida ended up facing Derek Lewis instead. And the odds for that fight, Almeida was being favored. And now I'm seeing a bunch of analysts taking Blades. I'm seeing some of the odds favoring Blades as well. Don't really see how that happens. I know that Almeida's last fight wasn't exactly super impressive. He basically just took down Derek Lewis and laid on him for 5 rounds. But it's not like we haven't seen Curtis Blades do that to people either. So I feel like people are sort of overlooking Almeida for that performance. They think he really has no striking, but the guy does have 7 knockout wins. He's ground and pounded some fighters too. He's got solid ground and pound when he can. I think the switch in opponents and how dangerous Derek Lewis is, I think he just kind of over-respected him and really just looked to control him on the floor and stay out of danger, because Derek Lewis is a guy that, he's famous for just getting back up when he's taken down and then he'll start throwing and looking for the knockout. So I think Almeida was just overly cautious in that fight. I don't think he's going to be the same in this fight. I don't think Blades presents the same type of knockout threat that Derek Lewis does. So I think we'll see Almeida open up a little more. These two do have three common opponents. Derek Lewis being one of them, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and Shamil Abdurakhimov. Both fighters TKO'd Abdurakhimov with ground and pound in the second round. Blades took a decision over Rozenstruik, whereas Almeida took him down and submitted him in the first round. And Almeida took that decision win over Lewis, while Lewis knocked out Curtis Blades. So if you play some MMA math there as well, I do like Almeida's chances in this fight. Seems like everybody's picking Curtis Blades, so I mean, if I'm wrong here, I'll have no issues admitting it, but I think we'll get another chance here to say I told you so, as I am taking Almeida to win this fight. I think if you take a look at it, Blades only has a 33% takedown defense in the UFC. You know, he is a really solid wrestler. It's probably the biggest part of his game, so I don't think he expects anyone to try and take him down. And when they do, you can get him down. His takedown defense isn't very good, and a wrestler on his back, if you look back to Ryan Bader, they're like a turtle. It's not a position where they want to be in, not a position where they're comfortable in. So I think if Almeida can get into top control, it's going to be over for Curtis Blades. And I do see that happening. I do see Almeida being more aggressive in this fight, coming after Blades early. I think he's going to get him down, and I am taking Almeida, Jailton Almeida, by first round submission for my official pick. For the first fight on the main card, we start off in the bantamweight division and we will end in the bantamweight division as well. For this fight, it is Peter No Mercy Yan taking on Yadong Kung Fu Kid Song. Yan is 31 years old. He is 16-5 overall with 7 knockouts, 1 submission, and 8 decisions. He is currently 8-4 in the UFC. His best wins have been over Magomed Magomedov, Matthias Matos, Teruto Ishihara, Douglas Silva de Andrade, John Dodson, Jimmy Rivera, Uriah Faber, Jose Aldo, and Corey Sandhagen. He is the former UFC Bantamweight champion, former interim UFC Bantamweight champion, former ACB champ. He is a master of sport in boxing, a master of sport in MMA, a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he's got a solid team behind him at Tiger Muay Thai. He is known as a striker, really punishing striker that can throw in combinations. And that style going against Song is going to be extremely entertaining to watch. On the other side, Song's only 26 years old. He is 21-7-1 overall, 9 knockouts, 3 submissions, 9 decisions. He is currently 10-2-1 in the UFC. His best wins have been over Alatang Haili, Alejandro Perez, Marlon Vera, Casey Kenny, Julio Arce, Marlon Moraes, Ricky Simone, and Chris Gutierrez. He is a former Sanda champion. He's got a great team behind him at Team Alpha Male. His head coach is Uriah Faber. He is extremely fast. He's durable, and he's also a dangerous striker with some serious pop in his hands, especially for this division. Close fight as the odds makers see it. Yan is a minus 140 favorite, with Song coming back as a plus 120 underdog. There's currently 3,180 Tapology votes on the fight. 63% of those are favoring Yan. Of those taking Yan, 81% expect him to win by decision. Of the 37% taking Song, 75% of those expect him to win by decision. That is kind of how I see this fight going too. It's super close. I do expect it to get to the judges' scorecards. Song is only 26 years old. He's constantly improving. I think this guy looks like he could be a future champion. I just don't know if he's going to get there right now. I think Yan has a lot more to lose in this fight. He's 1-4 over his last 5 fights. He's the former champion. He's had a drastic change in career trajectory here. He was the champ. It was looking like he was going to be the champ for a while. He lost by disqualification to Aljamain Sterling, and then he lost in the rematch. And He lost that close split decision to Sean O'Malley, and he hasn't had a lot of luck in the octagon. I think he's going to come in here with something to prove. He does throw more volume. He is the more accurate striker. He does have better defense on the feet. I do think Song is the better grappler. If Song can mix up some takedowns and gain any meaningful time in top control, I think that will be a way for him to edge this out in his favor. But Jan does have some pretty solid takedown defense, and he's going to be looking to punish Song on the feet as well. So I do think Song will kind of give him the striking battle he wants to, kind of play into Jan's game a little. And I think that's why we're going to see Jan come away with a win here. So for the official pick, give me Peter Jan by unanimous decision. Next up on the main card, we have an interesting welterweight pairing, as it's a veteran taking on a rising contender, as Gilbert Durinho Burns takes on Jack Della Maddalena. Burns is 37 years old. He is 22-6 overall with 6 knockouts, 9 submissions, and 7 decisions. He is currently 15-6 in the UFC. His best wins have been over Alex Cowboy Oliveira, Olivier Aubin Mercier, Mike Davis, Alexei Kuchenko, Gunnar Nelson, Damian Maia, Tyron Woodley, Stephen Thompson, Neil Magny, and Jorge Masvidal. He is an IBJJF World Champion, an IBJJF World No-Gi Champion, a CBJJ Brazilian National Champion, a UAE JJF Abu Dhabi World Pro Champion, a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just one of the best grapplers in the UFC. He's got a great team behind him at Killcliff FC. He's got grappling victories over Kron Gracie, Gregor Gracie, Gleason Tebow, Eve Edwards, Kazushi Sakuraba, Jake Shields, Rafael Lovato Jr., and he's got big power in his hands, too. This guy is dangerous everywhere. He will be taking on Maddalena, who is 27 years old. He is 16-2 overall with 11 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 3 decisions. He is currently 6-0 in the UFC. His best wins have come over Kevin Jousset, Angelusa, Ramazan Ameev, Danny Roberts, Randy Brown, and Kevin Holland. He is a former EMMA champ, former RF champion, brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a punishing striker who throws well in combination. Maddalena is currently sitting as a minus 125 favorite, with Burns coming back as a plus 105 underdog. There are currently 3,177 Tapology votes on this fight. 57% of those are taking Maddalena. 51% of those are picking Maddalena are expecting him to win by knockout. Of the 43% taking Burns, 51% have him winning a decision. As you can tell by the odds and the Tapology votes, this is a super close fight. But honestly, I could see it start to snowball terribly for either fighter. I could see Maddalena, just piecing up Burns on the feet, shutting down any takedowns, and the fight just starting to get progressively worse and Burns taking a beating. But I can see Burns kind of, putting a pace on Maddalena as well, getting him to the floor, locking up a submission, just beating him up as well. So tough one to call here. What really set it apart for me is I think Burns will be able to compete on the feet with Maddalena. He's got the power to kind of crack him and gain some respect. He's a pretty competent striker himself, so he'll be able to land some shots back on Maddalena. Whereas I think if Burns can get Maddalena to the floor, I don't see Maddalena being able to compete on the mat, especially if Burns is in top control. I think that's going to be a big problem for him. Maddalena's had pretty good takedown defense so far. He shut down Ramazan Ameev pretty well, but Ameev got cut. He wasn't a super outstanding guy anyway. Really, at this point, Maddalena's best win is a pretty close split decision over Kevin Holland, who is extremely inconsistent. So, yeah, I like Burns as an underdog here. Like I said, I think he's going to be able to compete on the feet. I think he will mix in some grappling. If he can get Madalena to the floor, I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes it. But I think Madalena is a dog. I think, he's just going to keep fighting. And I think he'll be able to survive to the final bell. Probably could see one fighter win two rounds to one here. Could be super close. But I am going to go ahead and take the underdog here. Give me Gilbert Burns by unanimous decision as the official pick. Up next, we go to the fight I'm actually most looking forward to on this card as Kevin Trailblazer Holland welcomes Michael Venom Page to the UFC. Holland is 31 years old. He is 25-10 overall with 13 knockouts, 8 submissions, and 4 decisions. He is currently 12-7 in the UFC. His best wins have come over Jeff Neal, Gerald Mearshart, Anthony Hernandez, Joaquin Buckley, Ronaldo Jacare Souza, Alex Cowboy Oliveira, Tim Means, Santiago Ponzinibbio, and Michael Chiesa. He is the former XKO welterweight champ, former XKO middleweight champ. He's a second-degree black belt in Kung Fu, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Travis Lutter. He's got big power in his strikes, one-shot knockout power, really good submissions, but not great wrestling. Also, not great fight IQ. He's a guy that likes to put on a show for the fans, so that does compromise his fight IQ at times. He's also a guy that's willing to step in there on short notice, fight anybody at any time. So that's it's gained him a lot of popularity, but it's the reason that he is also 12-7 in the UFC. On the other side, Page is 36 years old. He is 21-2 overall with 12 knockouts, 4 submissions, and 5 decisions. He is 17-2 in Bellator. His best wins have been over Ricky Rainey, Nashawn Burrell, David Rickles, Paul Daly, Ross Houston, Derek Anderson, Douglas Lima, and Goiti Yamauchi. He is a 4-time WACO gold medalist. He's a WKA gold medalist, an ISKA gold medalist. He has the record for most knockouts in the Bellator welterweight division. He is a 5th Dan black belt in kickboxing, a brown sash in Lao Garblunder, whatever weird fighting style that is. And he's just a super creative, flashy striker. He'll throw tornado kicks. If you're not familiar with his highlight reel, please go watch it. I know the UFC can't show you a lot of it because it was mostly in Bellator, but definitely go check that out. It's available on YouTube, things like that. He's got insane power as well. He caved in Evangelista Cyborg Santos' skull with a jumping knee, like literally shattered the top of his skull. So that was one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen, and can't wait to see him in the UFC, even though he is 36 years old. Holland is coming into this fight as a minus 130 favorite, with Page coming back as a plus 110 underdog. There's currently 3,174 Tapology votes on this fight. 56% of them are favoring Holland. Of those taking Holland to win, 54% expect him to win a decision. Of the 44% taking Page, 51% have him to win by decision. I really think this fight could come down to how Holland decides to approach it. I think if he strikes with Page, especially if he's trying to pick his shots from range and trying to counter, I think he loses that battle. I think if he gets over aggressive and kind of tries to chase after Page, I think we could see him get knocked out. I think he loses that battle as well. But I think if he wrestles, if he mixes things up, if he fights just a Kevin Holland type of fight, mixing things up, talking trash, I do see an opportunity for him to win there, especially if he's able to get Page to the floor. I think Kevin Holland is the much better grappler here. That being said, we're talking about Kevin Holland here. This is the guy who, he could have taken Stephen Wonderboy Thompson down. Didn't want to do that for the fans. He respected Stephen Wonderboy Thompson as well. Put on that striking battle with him and lost. So I think Michael Page is going to have the better fight IQ. He also has pretty solid takedown defense. So it's like not a guarantee that Kevin Holland can even get him down if he does decide to wrestle. Page is the better striker. And so I think Page also has a lot more to lose. He's 36 years old. He's coming in here. This is his UFC debut. He's immediately getting thrown in against the top guy. He mentioned it at one of his interviews that, he doesn't have the time to kind of build himself up here, and he doesn't need to. He is an established guy in MMA. He's coming in here immediately against a top-ranked popular fighter, and he's looking to get towards that title. So I think we see a smart fight out of Page here. I think he picks his shots. I don't think he gets too flashy. I think we will see, a couple moments of Michael Venom Page doing his thing. But yeah, I think he picks his shots. I think he fights the smarter fight. So give me Michael Venom Page by unanimous decision as the official pick. In the co-main event of the evening, we have longtime veteran and fan favorite Dustin the Diamond Poirier taking on Benoit God of War Saint Denis. Poirier is 35 years old. He is 29-8 overall with 15 knockouts, 7 submissions, and 7 decisions. He is 21-7 in the UFC. His best wins in his career have been over Josh Grisby, Pablo Garza, Max Holloway twice, Jonathan Brookins, Eric Koch, Diego Brandao, Diego Fajeda, Joe Duffy, Bobby Green, Jim Miller, Anthony Pettis, Justin Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez, Dan Hooker, Conor McGregor twice, and Michael Chandler. He's kind of beaten a who's who at the lightweight division there. He is the former interim UFC lightweight champ. He is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, trains with one of the best teams in the world at American Top Team, and he is one of the best boxers in the UFC. He's got really great hands, so any prolonged striking exchanges, especially in close, probably could favor Dustin Poirier in this fight. On the other side, Saint Denis is 28 years old. He is 13-1 overall. 4 knockouts, 9 submissions. Guy's never gone to decision for a win. He is 5-1 in the UFC. His best wins have been over Ismael Bonfim, Thiago Moises, and Matt Frivola. As you can tell by those best wins, this is going to be a big step up in competition for him. But he is the former SFC welterweight champion. He's a black belt in judo. He's shown to be pretty durable. He is a finisher, finished all of his pro wins, and he is dangerous everywhere. And when he gets in there, he has just a really savage mindset. This guy, he'll take a shot to land his. He is coming after his opponent. He just never stops attacking. Really exciting style for him. So this should be a great fight. Currently, Saint Denis is sitting as a minus 175 favorite, with Poirier coming back as a plus 145 underdog. That does actually surprise me a little bit because Poirier is the veteran. He is a fan favorite. I expected a little more respect on him there. Just shows you what everyone is currently thinking about Saint Denis and his potential in this division. There's currently 3,176 Tapology votes on the fight. 54% of those are favoring Saint Denis. Those taking him to win, 53% are expecting him to win by knockout. Of the 46% taking Poirier, 61% of those are expecting him to win by knockout. I see this being a super fun fight. Poirier is susceptible to being drawn into brawls, especially when he gets hurt. And Saint Denis is a guy who's always attacking, so expect both of them to just put on a show here. Both fighters are well-rounded and can finish the fight anywhere, too, so I think when the grappling exchanges start, the fight's still going to be super exciting. One thing that does worry me about Poirier, he's been mentioning retirement a lot, saying this could be his last fight. He is saying that, he doesn't need the money. This is a fight for him. He wants to get back to that belt. So I do expect him to come in hungry here. But with that lingering thought of retirement there, when things do get ugly and he has to dig deep, are we going to see that same Poirier that has, shown a ton of heart in his fights? Or are we going to see him start to, let off the gas a little bit because he does have that retirement in his mind. That definitely worries me the way he's been talking. I also think historically Poirier has more heart in a brawl on the feet than he does in grappling exchanges. I think when he's put in bad positions on the floor, we've seen him kind of quit pretty quickly. Um, he's been submitted only really by high level guys, but you can tell like once they locked up the submission, there was no him trying to fight out of it. There was no, him like willing to be choked out. He would tap pretty quick. So I do think he has more heart in a brawl than he does in a grapple. And I think if Saint Denis is smart, I think he realizes that he does kind of have a slight edge there and will kind of push the grappling exchanges. Yeah, I can see this one going either way. Really depends on how Saint Denis wants to approach it. Saint Denis has talked about wanting to beat fighters where they're best as well, so that does worry me if he comes in here and tries to strike only with Poirier. I think Poirier pulls off the upset and beats him. So, yeah, really depends on how Saint Denis is going to approach this fight. But I do expect him to kind of push the grappling exchanges a bit. Look to get Poirier on the floor. Give me, I don't know. I just have a feeling that Saint Denis is going to be able to break him, especially with the grappling. Um, I think he'll be able to wear him down, kind of make Poirier quit later in the fight. So give me Benoit Saint Denis by submission in the third round for the official pick. It's time for the main event of the evening here as the UFC bantamweight title is on the line. Sugar Sean O'Malley is making his first UFC title defense against Marlon Chito Vera. O'Malley is 29 years old. He is 17-1 overall. If you ask him, he is 18-0 or 17-0. He has 11 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 4 decisions. He is 9-1 in the UFC. Best wins have been over Eddie Wineland, Thomas Almeida, Raulian Paiva, Peter Yan, and Aljamain Sterling. He is the UFC bantamweight champion, former ICF champion. He is a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got a great team behind him at the MMA lab. He's probably the hardest puncher in the division and one of the most dynamic strikers in the entire UFC. On the other side, Vera is 31 years old. He is 23-8-1 overall, 8 knockouts, 10 submissions, and 5 decisions. He is currently 15-7 in the UFC. His best wins have been over Brad Pickett, Brian Kelleher, Frankie Saenz, Sean O'Malley, even though that one was a bit of a fluke, Davey Grant, Frankie Edgar, Rob Font, Dominic Cruz, and Pedro Munoz. He holds the record for most finishes in the bantamweight division, as well as the record for most fight time in the bantamweight division. He is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got really good kicks at all levels and knockout power. So, interesting fight here. O'Malley is coming in as a minus 245 favorite, with Chito coming back as a plus 200 underdog. There's currently 3,274 Tapology votes on this fight. 78% of those are taking O'Malley to win. Of those picking O'Malley, 58% are expecting him to win by decision. Of the 22% taking Vera, 64% are expecting him to win by knockout. Vera is not great about winning rounds, so I do think he'll need a finish to become the champion and get this win here. If you look back at like his last win over Dominic Cruz, he was losing 2-1 going into the fourth, ended up catching Cruz with that head kick to knock him out. Very well could have been on his way to losing a decision in that fight if he didn't get it. But that's what makes him dangerous. That's what makes him good. Is he, he's not looking to win rounds. He is looking for that finish, and he finds it more often than not. So, Vera does get better as the fight goes along too. I think he kind of settles in. He learns the timing and he learns to land the shots that he needs. But I just see him being a bit outmatched here. O'Malley throws a lot more volume. He is significantly more accurate with his strikes. He is significantly better defensively. He's got good takedown defense and grappling, competent enough to, I think, stay out of danger. I think Vera is the better grappler, but O'Malley's good enough to not get in any bad positions there. O'Malley has the reach advantage as well. I do think he's got to be careful of Vera's kicks. Like I mentioned, Vera's got good kicks. Not only just low kicks, but kicks at all levels. He's especially going to have to be careful with the low kicks. We know Vera's going to throw it again. Their first fight ended with that weird, he threw a low kick, hit some nerve in O'Malley's leg that just shut off his foot. Super rare shot. Like O'Malley said, if he could do it again, then maybe he knows how to do that, but it seemed like a fluke. Yeah, Vera, but he's got good kicks at all levels. So he's got good body kicks. We've seen him knock out Dominic Cruz with that head kick, like I mentioned. He knocked out Frankie Edgar with that front kick to the face as well. I think Vera's kicks are better than his hands. So he's going to have to be careful of that. But I do think he's going to be outmatched. I think the volume, the ability to win rounds, the ability to put a pace on Vera is going to be too much. I think unless he can really start debilitating Sean O'Malley's legs early and slow him down, I think we're just going to see O'Malley almost do what Corey Sandhagen did, where he just started out quick and kind of put a pace on Cheeto and got out to a big lead to where he was able to just kind of pick his shots and cruise a little bit later on. I think we see a similar game plan for O'Malley. I do think O'Malley wants the finish, though. He wants to be the first guy that's put Cheeto away because Cheeto has never been finished, never been really rocked or knocked down at all either. So I do see O'Malley wanting that distinction to be the first guy to do that. And that worries me a little bit because I think that's going to put him in danger of taking some of the power shots from Cheeto. But it doesn't worry me enough to not pick Sean O'Malley. I think outside of some kind of fluke thing with his leg again, or just him being stupid and getting caught by a big shot, I think O'Malley just pieces him up and starts to run away with this one just based on volume alone. Cheeto's tough, so I think he'll make it to the final bell, but yeah, volume, pace, all of it, reach advantage, significant strikes, accuracy, defense, everything's favoring O'Malley here, besides really the grappling. And Cheeto's not really a guy that likes to force that issue. So, yeah, I expect O'Malley to start out quick, win the rounds, and kind of just cruise to a decision here. So, for the official pick, give me Sugar Sean O'Malley to defend his title by unanimous decision. And that's a wrap for this episode of the MMA Oracles Podcast. I appreciate you all for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, follow. You can find me at the MMA Oracles pretty much everywhere. Also, check out my website, themmaoracles.wordpress.com. Do apologize for getting this out pretty late again. Trying to get a little bit better on that, but has been some things interfering. As always, let's go over some of my locks for the card. A lot of close fights on this card, so my locks, we'll go over them now. I got Asu Amabayev. That one is a lock. I think he's going to submit CJ Vergara. Even if he doesn't submit him, I can see him winning the decision. So don't see him losing that fight. Matus Gamrot, he is my next lock for the card. RDA is old and starting to decline. His loss to Vicente Luque was disappointing, and I think we're just going to see him keep declining here. So give me Gamrot as a lock as well. That being said, risky to go against a guy like RDA, but I don't think it's the same RDA anymore. So give me Gamrot as that lock. And then finally, Sean O'Malley. That first win for Cheeto was a fluke. I don't think we're going to see it again. I think Sean O'Malley just outpaces him in this fight. Might not be Sean O'Malley's most entertaining performance, but he should come out with a win. So my parlay for the card, switching it up a little bit, give me Asu Amabayev, Matus Gamrot, and Michelle Pajeda. You get some plus 140 odds on that parlay. I do think all of them are going to win. I do think Pereira, similar to O'Malley, I think he's just, I think he's really just too fast, too dynamic, more volume. I don't think Olajaychuk's going to be able to keep up with him. So my underdogs for the card, I actually like a good amount of underdogs here. Joanne Wood in the first fight of the night. I think she avenges her loss to Marina Moroz. I think she gets that by decision. You might be able to find some good bets on that fight. Felipe Lins, my next underdog. I think Cute Laba is an overrated bum, basically. I think he should have been cut from the UFC 6 and 8. Unless he can kind of blitz Felipe Lins and get him out of there early, I do think we see Felipe Lins take over and win that fight. I like Gilbert Burns. He's a veteran. He is old, so we might see him decline. This one's a little more risky. Jack Della Maddalena is a savage. It's really going to be a good fight, but I like Gilbert Burns. I think he has more tools. I think he's going to be able to compete everywhere in that fight, mix things up, and really be the first person to defeat Jack Della Maddalena. I mean, we're talking about Gilbert Burns. This is the guy that gave Hamzat Chimaev his toughest fight. So I think we see Gilbert Burns show that he's still got something left in the tank there. And then the debuting Michael Venom Page MVP. I do like him against Kevin Holland. I just think the fight IQ really is going to play a factor. The striking credential is also going to play a factor. I think he's going to be able to win on the feet and just kind of keep the fight where he wants it. So those are my underdogs. Couple of good bets there. Hopefully you can make some money on this card. I'll be throwing out some bets as well. So let's get it. And I appreciate you listening. Thank you again.